I talked to a fireman once. This is one of the reasons it freaked me out. And he was telling me, he goes, dude, one day, he goes, it's just going to be the right wind and fire's going to start in the right place. I go, really? He goes, yeah, we just get lucky. He goes, we get lucky with the wind, and it's going to burn through LA all the way to the ocean, and there's not a fucking thing we can do about it. He goes, but if the wind hits the wrong way, it's just going to burn straight through LA, and there's not going to be a thing we can do about it. With like 40-mile-an-hour winds. And the wind's just blowing embers through the air, and those embers are landing on roof. Because these fires are so big, dude. When they're talking about like thousands of acres that are burning simultaneously, and those houses are going up, and they're landing on bushes, and those bushes are going up, and everything's dry. There's nothing they can do.
You just have to evacuate, right?
Nothing they can do. And once it happens in a way where it's so spread out that there's nothing they can do.
1. Benjamin Franklin. In episode 1852, Joe Rogan dove into one of the wildest Benjamin Franklin theories on the Joe Rogan Experience. And trust us, it's not about kites and keys. Comedian Sam Tripoli dropped a jaw-dropping claim. 15 bodies were found buried in Franklin's London house. Yep, Franklin lived there during the time these skeletons were dated. But was he a serial slayer? Not exactly. Rogan entertained the theory that Franklin's protégé, William Hewson, ran a secret anatomy school there, relying on grave robbing to snag cadavers. Sketchy, right? But hold on, it gets darker. Franklin's Freemason ties sparked whispers of occult rituals gone wrong. Was this anatomy class or something creepier?
What?
Ben Franklin, they found tons of bodies in his...
Ben Franklin was a serial killer?
No, he was like doing some weird shit, dude. You never heard that, like, what he was found in it? They found in his house?
Experimenting with bodies?
Yeah.
Was Ben Franklin's basement filled with skeletons? Holy sh! Repairs on Franklin's old London house turned up 1,200 pieces of bone from at least 15 people. More than 200 years later, 15 bodies were found in the basement, buried in a secret windowless room. A 1 meter wide, 1 meter deep pit. Over 1,200 pieces of bone were retrieved. Forensic investigations showed that the bones dated to Franklin's day. Remnants of more than a dozen bodies, said Benjamin Franklin's house. 6 were children.
And we're just going to bury them downstairs.
Steady supply of human bodies was hard to come by legally. Still, we can't imagine that, curious man that he was, he didn't sneak down and check out the proceedings at least once or twice. Of course he did. So what do we do with the bodies? Bury him, bro.
2. Space is fake. Joe Rogan tackled the space is fake conspiracy and things got wild. In episode 1222, sparked by Japan's space elevator news, Rogan dove into theories claiming space isn't real as NASA portrays it. Conspiracy theorists argue that space is part of an elaborate lie, with some tying it to religious ideas like the firmament or even water above Earth. Rogan reflected on his past moon landing doubts, fueled by shady astronaut behavior and missing telemetry data. Guest Eddie Bravo ramped things up, linking fake space narratives to a one-world government plot, suggesting extraterrestrial threats could unite humanity under global rule. Oh, and he didn't forget the Vatican, claiming their telescope, ominously nicknamed Lucifer, ties it all together. Classic Rogan chaos.
Do you know that there's a growing movement that think that the space is fake?
No theory explains every single thing that's out there that we want to study. Main theory here that explains all these things here doesn't account for that. Well, my theory explains this little anomaly, so therefore it should replace this theory.
Hashtag space is fake is people that are so stupid the flat earthers kicked them out. And it's tied in some weird way to religion, which is really interesting. They somehow or another are controlling us. They're thinking that we're not exceptional and we're not lucky. They're trying to keep us from the knowledge that God has created this place as a very special place.
Right.
A tremendous amount of people that literally believe that space is not real.
3. Amazon lost civilization. Joe Rogan is all in on the idea of ancient advanced civilizations hidden in the Amazon, and the way he tells it is mind-blowing. In episode 1293 with Andrew Santino, Rogan breaks down how millions once thrived in the Amazon until diseases like smallpox wiped them out after European contact. The jungle then swallowed these civilizations, making them vanish like they never existed. Now, thanks to LiDAR tech, basically laser mapping magic, researchers are uncovering massive ancient cities, complete with roads, irrigation systems, and more. Rogan calls it crazy, and honestly, same. Imagine entire civilizations buried under centuries of lush greenery. Santino even compares it to discovering Atlantis, and Rogan's all for it. What else is out there waiting to be found?
All the different shit that they're finding in the Amazon and in South America, and that there used to be 20 million people that lived in the Amazon, and they died off. The jungle just overtook these cities, and now they're finding these cities with something called LIDAR. What happened was smallpox ran through the fucking jungle and
White
killed
people.
everybody.
We did it.
And they shoot this shit down, this LIDAR. It's like laser radar,
Yes.
and it shows them all these crazy structures, all these like roadways and irrigation systems, and it gives you a detailed image of what's below the surface and what's
Holy
there.
shit.
It was villages and cities, and millions of people probably live there. And look at it. That's all the stuff they're finding now.
What?
They found traces of 5 drugs, including dimethyltryptamine, on 1,000-year-old South American ritual kit.
DMT, baby.
So 1,000 years ago, they were using ayahuasca.
That private island,
Yes.
Sentinel
North
Island?
Sentinel
North
Island.
Sentinel Island?
Yeah. You can't land there, and you can't circle.
Right.
You can't visit.
I saw a thing online that said a boat crashed there, and you could still see on Google Images the remnants of the boat.
Yeah, they live, but the villagers were coming for them. Wow. Yeah. One of the reasons why those people are so hostile.
Right.
And it has to do with this British explorer who was really kinky.
4. Evidence of Atlantis. Joe Rogan dives deep into the mysteries of Atlantis with Jimmy Corsetti in episodes 1742 and 1928, exploring the striking connections between Plato's descriptions and the Rishat structure in Mauritania. Plato's account of concentric rings of land and water matched the Rishat's layout, while its proximity to the Atlas Mountains ties into the legend of King Atlas. Corsetti highlights Mauritania's gold-rich history, aligning with myths of Atlantis' wealth, and notes that Mansa Musa, the wealthiest figure in history, ruled the region. Geological evidence also points to catastrophic water erosion in the Sahara, which was lush and green thousands of years ago. Rogan is captivated as Egyptian accounts and modern evidence align, making the Atlantis theory feel undeniably plausible.
I've been fascinated by the concept of Atlantis. 11,000, 12,000 years ago, we were hit by a series of comets. It seems like something happened that reset civilization. And Atlantis has always been the big one. That has been the one that everybody talked about, was this incredibly advanced civilization.
Atlantis was said to be a kingdom made up of, or an empire, made up of 10 kingdoms. It represented a civilization that was doing great things. They were more global than what many people think would be possible. And then there was the lost city of Atlantis, which was the capital, which was said to be made up of concentric circles, essentially that they were obliterated by a cataclysm. I would argue that the most spectacular ancient civilization is the Egyptians. I mean, no disrespect to the Romans.
Would lead out to the ocean, and that these circles would be where the water is. And
People will say, well, where is that stuff now? I'm like, well, look at it. It got
those people-
obliterated. Actual scientific evidence that indicates that Atlantis actually existed.
that the Younger Dryas impact theory is extremely plausible. Many impact points on Earth where they find this tritonite. And we know that, all over the planet, I should say, we know that happened. Like,
Yep.
This is like real hardcore geological evidence.
5. Moon landing. Joe Rogan discusses theories about the moon landing with Ben Askren on his MMA show number 12, questioning the peculiar behavior of the Apollo 11 astronauts during their 1969 press conference. Rogan describes their demeanor as nervous and unconvincing, fueling suspicions about whether the landing was genuine. He examines iconic moon photos, like the flag appearing to wave without wind, and astronauts' movements that seem unnatural for a low-gravity environment. Rogan notes inconsistencies, such as footage resembling trampoline training or wire-assisted leaps, which contrast with the slower motions of Apollo 11. While some believe the landing was staged to outshine the Soviets during the Cold War, Rogan speculates that simulated training footage may have mistakenly been presented as real, leaving room for doubt.
Really? Yeah, no.
I'm not into the space travel one, so.
I mean, they did a couple of flybys, unmanned drones like what we have on Mars and things like that. We've never really sent a living thing. And then we haven't been able to do that since 1972.
That's the one where
Yeah.
I've never looked into the moon landing. I think it's kind of goofy, right?
Well, it's weird. It's a weird one. The technology is far superior, except that they're not using that technology for manned space travel. Our technology in all these other areas is superior, but they haven't really worked towards that because they haven't been funded.
6. Map of Antarctica. In episode 1897 of his podcast, Joe Rogan listens to Graham Hancock present his theory about ancient Antarctica, which challenges modern understanding. Hancock points out the mysterious presence of Antarctica on ancient maps, despite its official discovery only in 1820. He highlights the 1530 Wildest world map, which depicts the continent of Antarctica, larger than its current size and free of ice, with rivers running through it. Hancock suggests that these maps, which combined newer exploration data with much older sources, are remnants of a lost civilization that mapped the world long before modern history. He believes this lost civilization may have possessed knowledge that was later rediscovered by ancient mapmakers, providing evidence of a far more advanced past than we realize.
أسفل الشاشة أمامكم هذا العاجل وصلنا الأمس.
7. Simulation theory. In episode 1113 of the Joe Rogan Experience, Rogan and his guest Dennis McKenna dive into the fascinating concept of simulation theory. Rogan, intrigued by the idea, reflects on how the increasingly bizarre nature of reality makes him question if it's all a simulation. He humorously points to political events like Congressman Weiner's scandals and Trump's victory as moments that pushed him to consider the theory. Musk's belief in the possibility of simulations lends credibility to the idea. Rogan even muses that we might already be in a simulation, discussing how technology could lead us to create simulations that feel indistinguishable from reality. McKenna adds that while simulation theory offers no inherent morality, its implications could be profound, potentially signaling the end of biological humanity as we know it.
This is the sign of the simulation. Have you considered the simulation theory? It might be real. I mean,
well, sometimes I do wonder.
I began actively considering it when Congressman Weiner kept pulling it out. Imagine if one day someone shuts it off and the lights dim and then, well, the game's over. How did you like it? And you're like, what? You're in a simulation with artificial memories implanted into your mind. Technology increases at the same rate that it's increasing now, whether it's 50 years from now or 100 years from now. We're going to reach some point in time.
Whatever this is, let's assume for the moment that this is reality. It's not. Do we want to migrate into a virtual reality?
8. Adam and Eve polls. In episode 1928, Jimmy Coretti and Ben Van Kirk discuss the Adam and Eve theory, which claims a magnetic pole shift happens every 6,500 years, with catastrophic results. They argue that the shift could cause massive tsunamis, extreme heat, and high-speed winds. Coretti suggests that this shift would also weaken the Earth's magnetic field, making us more vulnerable to solar flares and radiation, especially due to our dependence on electronic devices.
But the Adam and Eve story, the theory of that is that it happens in cycles of 6,500 years. It's a planet flip 90 degree, and that because of it, the Earth essentially does a standstill. The sun will be, the wind and the waters continue with their momentum in the same spot, causing heating. And here's the wild thing is that in that document, it says, the theory is that when that event happens, it's going to be cataclysmic, a continental-sized tsunami being 2 miles high, which is at 11,300 feet, that has salt as well as evidence of gastropods. Well, I showed you the Emikusi volcano in Africa in the Sahara. Sea life.
That's 2 miles high.
Yeah. In that document, it says 6 days things start simmering down a bit, and by day 7 things are starting over new.
9. Hitler's demise. In episode 1117, Tim C.U. reveals startling details about the mystery surrounding Hitler's demise. Despite the official story stating Hitler died by suicide in 1945, declassified FBI documents show that the U.S. spent millions searching for him after the war. The skull Russia claimed was Hitler's turned out to belong to a 35-year-old woman, casting doubt on the narrative. CU explains how thousands of high-ranking Nazis escaped to South America, including potentially Hitler himself, with eyewitness accounts suggesting he may have survived.
One atom weighing too much and is that being just enough to shift our universe into a parallel universe? Because after I watched this, everything I saw for months was talking about out multiverses, and it's got me up, Joe.
I hear you. Read
this
that paragraph. Look at what it says there.
This is an explanation for all the Mandela effect things that people keep finding
he goes
online.
into stuff about the Mandela effect. News things about the multiverse all of a sudden was everywhere around me.
If there was something they could do that might open up a door to a parallel universe, you don't think they would do it?
Stranger Things. You mean?
People that dismiss climate change. That is the weirdest one to me.
Like they just posted a whole thing of 10 or 80, like something in the 80s, a glacier picture of it, and just now, and it's gone.
I wish people had nothing to do with it.
10. Multiple universes. In episode 1314, Joe Rogan dives into the mind-bending concept of multiple universes with Charlemagne the God and Andrew Schultz. They explore the idea that within the infinite universe, there could be countless versions of you, experiencing every moment exactly as you do, down to every pause. Rogan delves into the fractal nature of galaxies and black holes, suggesting that inside each black hole, there could be an entire new universe. The conversation touches on the Mandela effect, where people recall things differently, possibly due to shifting between universes, with Charlemagne admitting he's experienced something similar, a shadowy figure and the eerie feeling of being frozen.
It's impossible to put in your head that infinite universes, that the universe is so big that not only is there another you out there that has done everything exactly as you've done, with hundreds of billions of galaxies, with hundreds of billions of black holes inside each one of those, that inside every galaxy is a supermassive black hole, and inside that black hole may be another universe. Hundreds of billions of black holes, that it's fractal, and that it's impossible for you to even conceive.
11. Parallel universe. In episode 1339, Joe Rogan discusses the possibility that each time we sleep and wake up, we enter a slightly different parallel universe. Our choices could dictate which reality we experience, with small changes occurring each time. This ties into the Mandela effect and doppelganger theories. Rogan suggests we may wake up with foggy memories, unsure if we're still in the same universe, creating a terrifying sense of uncertainty. 12. Time traveling. In episode 1821, Joe Rogan, Bert Kreischer, and Tony Hinchcliffe dive into time travel theories, discussing Terence McKenna's idea that time becomes nonlinear with the invention of a time machine. Instead of traveling to specific moments, time would unfold like a road, allowing anyone to go back and forth. As time travel advances, everything could exist simultaneously, making the world unrecognizable, where memories and possessions could be altered in an instant.
You know, that was the theory that Terence McKenna had to the thing that's going to change the universe, is that one day someone's going to invent a time machine. Can't travel where there are no roads. So once a road gets built, then you can travel from that moment to the end of time. So all time ceases to be linear. Of the time machine forward to forever can come back to that moment and can go to any point in time. If you don't like what you said, you could rewind and start all over again. If you're in an argument with your wife, travel back and forth through time. You can never own anything because someone could just travel through time and take it away from you when you weren't looking. Herodotus once said, and then bam, your wife thinks you're the smartest guy in the world. The world itself would be completely unrecognizable because time would mean nothing.
13. JFK assassination. In episode 1052, Joe Rogan debates Mick West about the JFK assassination, with Rogan leaning towards a conspiracy involving multiple shooters. He critiques the single bullet theory, citing the pristine bullet found on Connolly's gurney and the lack of bullet distortion when it hit bone. Rogan highlights inconsistencies in autopsy reports and how the CIA may have coined conspiracy theory to dismiss alternative narratives. Mick admits some strange elements, but maintains the official story. 14. The Shining X-Moon Landing. In episode 1481, Joe Rogan discusses a wild conspiracy theory linking The Shining to the moon landing. The theory claims Stanley Kubrick, the film's director, secretly faked the moon landing, referencing details like the number 237 in the film, matching the moon's average distance from the Earth. Rogan explores how some theorists believe Kubrick's demise shortly after the movie's release was linked to his knowledge of the conspiracy, potentially silenced by the Illuminati. That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.